Greetings, everyone. I've been sitting there for an entire day. I realize my topic probably don't apply to most of you guys. So this is my third year practicing as a attending, and last year was actually my second job hunt after my graduation from residency. So I had the thought of when I just talk about how I find a job as a hospitalist. But I see most of you are like senior seasoned physicians who may be on the other side of the table. Thank you for the introduction. I'm currently still working my last month in this rural hospital in Eastern Shore, Maryland. If you guys ever been to Ocean City, on the it's next to the Atlantic Ocean, and the town where the hospital is located at serves a large population across this peninsula called Delmarva Peninsula, which is Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. We do see very complex patients because of aging population, retirement age population relocating to my area because of low cost of living. And we actually have a lot of patients who sees Hopkins or University of Maryland who don't go there because of transportation issue, take like 2-hour drive to go across the bridge to the mainland Maryland. I went there for a very specific reason. I'm an international physician, and I did and complete a program called National Interest Waiver Physician. It is a program, if you serve the United States, underserved area for in total 5 years, I'll be self-sponsoring my permanent residency. So that's what I did. I had that intention. My residency training counts, and that's how I chose my first job. And my current rural hospital, the institution is also a J-waiver place for some of you who may be needing, or you have friends who need J-waiver position. You may know what I'm talking about. I joined in, my hospital was in the middle of transitioning from a complete private practice into a more like a teaching hospital. We have like second year internal medicine residency and surgery residency now. But when I first joined in, I was hired as a solo hospitalist. So my census would be, if I'm rounding 15 patients up and down, I'm the front line, so I need to be there at 7 a.m. sharp, and I usually leave the hospital at 7:30 or 8. I also do admissions, like maybe 10 to 12. My recommendation, if you ever need to go to a hospital, try not to go to the like a community hospital if you are traveling, of course. The reason is there are many system-wise risks that me as an individual frontline provider cannot really manage. Unpredictable staffing, of course, it's underserved area. By definition, it's underserved. It varies a lot across the country. So if you are in like southern states, Alabama, you may be asked to see 20 patients plus daily admissions. Mine is like in the middle ground, so I'd be asked to like see 15 patients. I think it's reasonable. I have other friend of mine who practice in like Midwest, 12 patients, and that's very manageable. What I found most challenging after practicing for almost like 3 years now is inconsistency in specialty coverage. Weirdest day of my entire 3 years experiences. First day of my first week, so we all know it's all new patients. I was assigned 16 patients. I walked into the hospital, turned on my pager. Urology called me, hey, we have a patient with emphysematous pyelonephritis that needs to be transferred out right now, otherwise he will die because we don't have interventional radiology. So I had to call University of Maryland, Hopkins, George Washington, across the bridge. The patient, I didn't transfer the patient out of hospital, transfer the patient to ICU. Had a cold blue that day. I was on call, had managed that, and like feel more distal patient. I need to discharge. That's the weirdest day in my past 3 years experiences. It becomes unpredictable. You have better days too. neurology coverage. I see a lot of neurology specialists here, and it's a luxury to have you guys in a community setting. What I mean is there is this thing called teleneurology. To me, that's a joke. The camera comes to the patient room. They like ask the nurse to do the physical exam. Come on, you need like 4 years of neurology training to perform decent neurology exam. And the teleneurology will recommend everything. MRI, let's LP this guy. This guy has a headache, and if you look at the chart, 10 years ago, patient saw at Hopkins has trigeminal nerve neuralgia, and she's telling me I've been having this headache for decades now. Another case with neurology coverage, Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. One of my patients has Parkinson advanced, so doesn't talk, doesn't move much. I called neurology. I wasn't sure why patient isn't waking up, and they recommended and did an EEG, which by the end of their shift, which is 5 p.m., and they are leaving for the weekend, it reads non-convulsive status epilepticus. What am I supposed to do? We actually managed like up to step down ICU. I called ICU saying, hey, we have this patient in status. I need to transfer you to you guys. They call me back saying, oh, you haven't given any like anti-epileptics, so try that. So I ordered that, but I'm also ending my shift. So I signed on to the night physician. For whatever reason, the patient stayed in the step down ICU throughout the night. And there's this thing called cerebral. It's like a rain. It's not the full continuous EEG monitoring. I'm not trained to read that. I didn't have that exposure in my residency training, but that thing is reading 100% seizure activity throughout the night, for the love of God. Next day, I walked the patient, I called the family, and I walked the patient and the family into the ICU, in front of the ICU provider. We just started talking. And in the end, the patient, we kind of had to change the goals over here because they don't want the patient to be intubated. But in real life, in the specialty shortage area, that's where you might have to encounter infectious disease. It's so easy to start the Zosyn, vancomycin, or meropenem vancomycin without stopping it. Sometimes you just need a judge to come and, hey, let's stop it. It's adequate. It's adequately treated. I interviewed 2021, my first job hunt, a hospital in rural Illinois. They are paying you $300K, 4 weeks of vacation time, closed ICU, but they don't have GI coverage. They have one retired GI physician who comes in like twice a week or once a week to do scope, and all the GI bleed and other patients get transferred. That's not what I imagine my first lieutenant job will be, because I don't get to I don't get adequate exposure with a patient pathology. I don't grow. And closed ICU, there is a concept called open ICU. It'd be very hard for me to imagine, because most of us here are working in academic center, but I do have a colleague of mine from residency training. They end up in Midwest, very high paying job as a nocturnist. You're asked to manage an open ICU. You're the proceduralist. They learn how to intubate patient from YouTube video. It's daunting to me. I don't like that risk, and I'm not that good at procedure per se. So closed ICU is very important from my perspective. You are the primary team for almost all services, procedure service, unless patient needs to go to ICU. We admit like patient with intracranial bleed. If the neurosurgery is like, oh, patient doesn't need ICU care, go to the step down ICU under medicine. One caveat my colleague made, this was a tricky situation, was a nocturnist colleague of mine who was asked by ER physician to admit a 17-year-old man who they had this concern for status epilepticus. So the teleneurology refused to see the patient because they are only certified to see adult. And in my hospital, we peds shall see up to 17 years old, the 364 days age. And my colleague wasn't 100% confident with that. The ER attending was, in a way, POA him. And the patient was admitted to MICU. Luckily, we didn't hear bad consequences coming out of the admission, but in real life, if the patient truly has status epi, what's going to happen? We don't have pediatric ICU, we don't have PEACE neuro, we don't have continuous EEG monitoring. The patient should have been transferred out of ED in the very first place. So working in the underserved area, you need to be very well aware of what your facility has to offer, because it's easy to admit it becomes a problem if they come in and you don't have the capability to treat. Now this part doesn't apply to most of you guys, but how I did my job interview application. I know I needed to take care of my visa immigration status, so that's what I did. If any of you may be interviewing for a hospitalist job or maybe just attending job in general, I think this may apply partially. You will need to have a resume and preferably a cover letter ready before you even start talking to anyone. Because what may happen is you'll start talking to like say one of the attending here in ACAP. Well, I'm looking for a job, and she's so pleasant. She's like, oh, give me your CV, and you don't have that ready yet. It's awkward. Professional references. This applies to me, especially my second round of interviewing, because there is a potential conflict of interest for me leaving my current institution. It's an underserved area. We are constantly in physician shortage. I cannot typically be like 3 references, 2 of your colleagues who will be your friends, and 1 supervisor. So I was hesitant asking my current institutional supervisor to be my reference, because I'm pretty much telling them I'm intending to leave. What if I don't get any offer? And I'm stuck here and they know I want to leave. So have someone in mind that you can reach out. What I did is I went back to Chicago and talked to my associate program director who helped me in this process. Yeah, like I'm sensing that most of you here would be the interviewer, not the person being interviewed. But for my first job, this is what I've been using: Practice Link, Practice Match, NJM job. But most posting there are community level hospital positions, like what I've been doing in shortage. If you are interested in academic position, I think it's a matter of luck. It has a lot to do with the timing, who you'll know, if the institution is hiring. Last year, I had a strong, I know I want to move to New York area for personal reasons. So what I did is there is this website called American Hospital Directory. I think it applies more to like if you are a hospitalist rather than a specialty physician. But like say Westchester Medical Center, I have not been to Westchester Medical Center before, but I kind of get an overview. So this is a big campus, major facility. It has 888 beds and has all kinds of comprehensive services, even transplants. And in comparison, this hospital is called Atlantic General Hospital. It's not my institution. It's a neighborhood hospital. It has 62 beds, and it has ED. Impressively, it has an ICU, but I suspect they can only treat DKA patients, and all the intubated patient gets transferred. So you can't do much there. So when it comes to actual interview, if some of you may be needing that for your attending job position, typically if it's community hospital, you will get a screening call from HR, then there will be the main physician interview, and there may or may not be, typically community level, there is an on-site interview. It doesn't apply to academic position. Last year, I interviewed at Mount Sinai Hospital, Montefiore Hospital, the main campus, and the Westchester Medical Center. I didn't get any phone call from like HR. So I think academic institution has more, like they can do whatever they want in terms of how they want the interview arranged. For a community position, this is what I ask and what I evaluate. It is a closed or open ICU. I want to avoid open ICU at all costs. what kind of role am I taking? Am I rounding? And there are dedicated admission shifts. Typically, if you work as an nocturnist, you'll be asked to cover the floor and admit. There is a unique shift called swing shift that's usually noontime until midnight, 12 at noon to 12 p.m. or sometimes 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. Usually admissions. Your solo or do you have any APP with you? All the major institutions in New York that I interviewed, you'll be working with, so your census may be 18, 20, but you very likely will have APP working with you. But in the community, you'll be on your own. Specialty coverage, that doesn't apply to academic institution at all, especially if there is a training program, residency fellowships. But say the high-paying community job in the middle of Midwest only have a retired GI physician, you want to know that part. Hospitalist turnover rate, like for my institution, we know the turnover rate is high. People come and go because they come down with waiver, they leave. Who decides to stay in the area are usually they have family, married, low cost of living, they purchase a big house, 4-bedroom. That's when they decide to stay in that area. Procedure requirements, yeah, I don't want to be the guy who has to learn central line placement, airway management in a community level institution. My institution, all the paracentesis lumbar puncture are done by the interventional radiology. So a way for the hospital to generate revenue that way. So I haven't done any paracentesis in the past 2 years. Some institutions require you to run code blue. We have to take calls to be on call for code blue and taking transfer from other satellite hospital sites. Some facility there are like ICU coverage. I train in Cook County, Chicago, so it's quite comparable experiences with the major teaching hospital, community hospital in New York City. I understand sometimes it may be challenging working with the nursing staff here. I had very similar comparable experiences back in Cook County. For me, I was able to manage alone, solo, 17 patients on my daily duty. Is we have excellent nursing staff. They are my hands and eyes, and I trust their report a lot. If they had any concern, I had to come back to the bedside. Something has to be good to compensate what's less sufficient. Salary and paid time off. This is usually not a topic. You'll be talking with the main physician that you're interviewing with. For community position, you'll be talking with the HR, and that's when they go over how many paid time off do you have, what's your compensation like. They'd be selling your program, or we are only 3 hours drive away from major city, and you'll get to enjoy the outdoor activities a lot. Like Dr. Xu said, the key here is how they present their benefits, if you take that as a benefit. Outdoor activities, if you're in a rural area. I do request an on-site interview. The reason is I can talk to the physician who tours me around the campus, so I get more perspective from a second physician, apart from the main physician panel interview. Reasons for seeking a new position, typically end of training, you need an attending job. Last year, I really need to relocate to this area. Plans for fellowships. My very first time I interviewed for a attending job, I still thought I may be applying for pulmonary critical care. So I mentioned that some programs don't like that idea, but some don't really care. So I don't think, just be honest, your CV tells you, like, if you have tons of research publication related to cardiology, you know. The third part, interesting. I learned this from indirect experiences. My institution recently interviewed a candidate who is American. came and made a consistent, significant negative impression on the entire department throughout her interview by complaining her prior employer. So don't do that. And the last point, I learned it in a hard way. Especially if you're ending your residency training, it's not like residency interview. Do not expect the program follow up with you. They may not. You may interview with them, screening call, you may interview with the main physician. They are not obligated to reply you or follow up with you. Like we are taking another candidate. I waited for an entire month and I was kind of late in my cycle already. You need leeway, you need time to take care of, like say, if you need to apply for a new state license. If you are on visa, you need visa. So be aware of that. They are not obligated to follow up with you. Just interview until you get the actual offer. You can decline the offer, but without the offer, it's still pending. I think what might have helped with my 2 rounds of job hunt, having practice as attending certainly helps. That's the best way to testify that you can handle attending position. But yeah, sure. Immigration status. This time it helped. Initially, for me as an international physician, I thought I need to have green card for me to have more opportunities, but it's actually not true. If you do not require the employer to sponsor your green card, you can do that through marriage. You can do that if you are heavily research oriented. You can do national interest waiver. If you're EB1, you'll know. The reason is all the major institutions I interviewed last year, they sponsor H1B with no problem at all. MSKCC, they sponsor H1B. But it is very hard for them to prove to the United States that they cannot hire a US or green card equivalent for this position. So in order for them to sponsor your green card, they need to prove that they cannot find a US equivalent to fit the position. But if you do not need that green card sponsorship, it should be in good shape. Skills, if you are good at procedures, for hospitalists, it's very good. The selling point, if you're good at point of care ultrasound, academic institution like that idea, if you have taught before. Last point, I learned it in a very interesting way. Good professional relationship with your current colleagues. So one of the institutions I interviewed last year, I was asked to provide 3 professional references. But the chief of medicine reached out to an infectious disease colleague consultant in my current institution, who I was not aware are being contacted. And we had good relationship. And she's like, Dr. Chen, a little bit was telling me that you are interviewing somewhere else. I'm like, who leaked that message? So yeah, especially if you are an external candidate like me. Typically, academic center, they take internal candidates. They have training program. Graduates wants to stay. They don't know you as an external candidate that well. If you have someone you know that can speak for you, it'd be great. And just be prepared. They may reach out to someone in your institution one way or another, just to get to know you better. And thank you very much for having me here. What happened last year is I attended the May gathering in ACAP, and I get to know Dr. Li and Dr. Guo, and that made a huge, great positive impression during my actual interview with Westchester. Thank you.